So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being on this panel today. My name is Kristen Vogel. I am the University of South Florida campus Peace Corps recruiter. I'm also a Coverdell Fellow in the Department of Applied Anthropology, but I'm mostly moderating today. And I have a series of questions I'll go through, and we'll just have, I think, whoever wants to answer it first. I'm not going to go in any specific order, but maybe it'd be nice to try to keep it like the Peace Corps volunteer and the counterpart answering it, one after the other. That would be kind of nice. So the first one is just brief introductions so we can know who all of you are. So if you can just share with us your name, because I know some of our names are not appearing as they are on the screen. And then your local language greeting, maybe like whatever your greeting for the time of day is, or whatever you would say in the local language. Also your country of service, your current location if you're no longer in that country, the years of your service or working together in Peace Corps, and then whatever sector you were working in as a volunteer or you were working with your volunteer in. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. And like I said, whoever wants to jump in first.
Sure, I'll get things started. My name is Lucas Hicks. I was a rural community health volunteer in Benin, West Africa from September of 2017 until November of 2019. In my site, our local language was Aja. And so in the morning, you would ask your neighbor, Ifonindea, did you wake up well? Yeah, I worked with Christian Alokbo, my program manager for my whole 2 years there, and I'll let him introduce himself and give his background working with the Peace Corps.
All right, hi everyone. Lucas, good to see you again. So my name is Christian Alokbo. I'm the health program manager with Peace Corps Benin. And my office is located in Benin, Cotonou, the capital city. But currently I'm in the north of the country. I'm kind of doing site preparation for future volunteers. That's why I'm in the car. So sorry if that's not okay with someone, but at least it was important for me to participate in this meeting.
Yeah, thank you. We're happy to have you, and that's totally fine. We can hear you great and everything. So thank you for being here.
Yes.
I can go next. My name is Connor, and in Guyana we'd say good morning, Thursday afternoon, good afternoon, and it's English there, so it's pretty easy to remember that one. I'm currently at USF now as an MPH student, and I served in Guyana as an adolescent health promoter in the health sector from 2018 to 2020. And Marisa was my training specialist, and I'll let her talk more about her.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Marisa George, and I'm the program and training specialist at Peace Corps Guyana. I've been there for the past 6 years. So I had the pleasure of working with Mr. McCarley for 2 of those 6 years. Our office is located in Georgetown, but we have 10 regions, and so we try not to place our volunteers in our capital city. So we normally place our volunteers in the outlying coastal areas.
I can go next. My name is Erin. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in the health sector in South Africa for about 1.5 years. There we would say Dumela Lekai, hello, how did you rise in the morning? That's in Setswana. And then my counterpart is Philip. I just got notification from him saying that they had load shedding this morning, so he didn't have any connection data or anything, so he's still working on trying to get in, but hopefully he gets in soon.
I guess I can go. So good morning, everyone, or buenos dias. I served in Peru in the La Libertad region, which is like in the Andean mountains. My site was at like 10,000 feet elevation, which is very different for me because I am a native Floridian. And I am back in Tampa. I did my undergrad degree here at USF, and I came back after the Peace Corps to do my master's in public health here as well. And I was a community health facilitator, so in the health sector in the Peace Corps Peru program, and I served between 2019 and 2020.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here today. I am excited to hear this conversation. So we can go to, I think that was everyone. So we can go to question 2. Just breaking the ice, sharing, I'd love for you to share your most memorable experience with each other. So volunteers and your counterparts. What was your most memorable experience together? And it can be, you could answer together, or the volunteer could answer, or the counterpart could answer, and vice versa, and have different experiences too.
I was thinking about this question for quite a while. It's been a while since I've been in Benin, so I had to think back, like, what's my first memory of Christian Okpo? And I think during our graduation ceremony, after the first 3 months of pre-service training, we had a big party, lots of dancing, and Christian is a phenomenal dancer. So that's the first thing that came to my
mind. Thank you, Lucas. I guess the memorable like souvenir that I have, it was during our first interview. So, when they come as trainees, I, as the program manager, I used to take them for a few minutes and chat a bit. And I was surprised by Lucas' level of French. He was kind of advanced already in French. When it's like that, it's always easier for us, to train them and to make sure the message we pass out, it goes. So that's what I can say now. That's the first thing, that I can remember.
I'll go for us, for Marisa and I first. I gotta make sure I say something good before she makes fun of me, because I'm sure that's coming. I think one of my favorite memories or moments would be the second year I was there, the beginning of it. The training center was the training area was in my region. And so then we had to host a model school for the new health volunteers. And I think that whole week was just so much fun with me, 2 other health volunteers, and Marisa running the whole school with a bunch of students. And I was always the drink guy that had carts with all the sodas in it so the kids could get their drinks. And that was a very fun week for me.
That's the same one I had, Connor, because many of our other fun moments we cannot share as this thing is being recorded. So that indeed was a fun time, and we have pictures to suit with Connor holding the drinks as if he were the drink seller. So that was a very, very fun time. But as I said, many other fun memories that cannot be shared on this recorded live.
For us, with Philip and I, one of our most memorable experiences just working on our grant together. For me, it was just like seeing how good he was with the kids. Like, they just loved him. He just always had so much energy and so much positivity. And he was just so much fun to work with. And his answer was kind of the same thing, just working on the grant together. His other answer was doing our little exercise group that we had at our organization with some of like the mamas and just doing exercises. It was always really fun. So.
And for me, my program manager, her name was Miriam, and she is amazing. And one of my funnier memories with Miriam, you would think it wouldn't be funny, but it's funny to me now in hindsight. But it was when we were having our interview towards the end of a PST, and she was kind of like trying to gauge what kind of site would be best for me. And going back to the fact that I'm a native Floridian, you know, I mentioned that to her. I was like, just remember, like, I'm low altitude, I'm used to warm climate, you know, so on and so forth. And she was just like taking notes, you know, and then I got my site appointment and it was the complete opposite of what I thought I was going to be getting. But she knew what she was doing because it really was the perfect site for me. And that's just like how our whole relationship was the entire time I was in Peace Corps, was that she always knew best. Even when you think you know best, she knew best for sure. And I really appreciated her.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I feel like that's a great question to kind of give people who haven't done Peace Corps kind of just a picture, like a view into what it's like, you know, making these relationships on the ground and having kind of these memorable experiences that you come home with afterwards. So thank you for sharing those. So the next question I have for everyone, and again, whoever wants to go first, how did your counterparts and you, or you and your counterpart, or how did you and your volunteer come to work together? And I know everyone's in slightly different positions. If you were part of the Peace Corps staff, or if you were a counterpart in, or if you're talking for a counterpart who is in your village. So just kind of maybe explaining those dynamics a little bit and how you came to work together.
I think I'll establish the pattern of us going first. So it's kind of hard to answer that specific question because Christian is the program manager for all rural community health volunteers. So we work together just by virtue of that. That being said, I came to Benin because I had this health background and I wanted to, get a more wide worldview outside of my own backyard. So I told the Peace Corps, I'll go anywhere you need me, preferably health and preferably somewhere French, because I had some background with French. So that's kind of how I ended up in Benin. And I think, so for Christian, for the program manager position, maybe they might want to hear how you found yourself working for the Peace Corps as program manager of the RCH group.
Okay. Yeah, maybe kind of like a background. Before working for Peace Corps, I used to work for an NGO called Population Services International, and I was a health communication specialist there. And then, I joined the Peace Corps specifically because at the PSI, I used to work with volunteers on a program called Amorevi, Love and Life. It's a peer education. It is a peer education program. So I was kind of interested in, working more with those Peace Corps volunteers and having to interact more with them. And so I would say it is still a very rewarding experience. And every year before the evacuation, we used to have a cohort of volunteers that we work with. And so every health volunteers has to work with me. They want or they don't want, they have to work with me. So I think that's how, we got to work together. And it has been, and it will always be, a great opportunity for me,
Okay, going with the established pattern. I'll go next. I was similar to Luca. I was health background. I was said send me anywhere, and so they put me in Guyana, and I'm very appreciative because I got to work with Marisa, and she was our training specialist. So naturally, being in health, that's how I worked with her, and she was very knowledgeable and helpful with the education and the stuff we're going on. So it was definitely a great experience, and I'm glad I was able to work with her.
So I came to work at Peace Corps because I had a background in facilitation and working with NGOs similar to Christian. I worked for 13 years at a non-governmental organization called Artistes in Direct Support that did work in HIV/AIDS at that time. And so it was kind of an easy transition for me, but a hard move because funding was coming to an end under the HIV programs. And so Peace Corps had a vacancy. It sounded like something that I could have done. I applied and I got in, and so I became the program and training specialist, and that's how I came to work with Mr. McCarley.
So Philip and I came to work together. I got super lucky. I was the second volunteer in the community, and he had already been working with the first. So I just kind of continued on what they were doing. And yeah, I mean, he was great, even for the last volunteer. And I think he's still working on getting in. I just sent him the password and like the meeting ID number. So hoping he gets on soon because he's great. Y'all will love him.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Erin just said, I actually was the first volunteer at my site. And in this particular region I was working in Peru, we were just introducing the health program. And so I think Miriam had a really, and we had just fixed the framework of the health program for Peru. And so we were starting off a new framework, we were breaking into a new region. And my site, along with a few others, were the very first sites where we were the very first volunteers for quite a number of sites. And so a lot of work and preparation conversations had happened during like PST and everything to get us to that point. And I really hope that they're able to continue the work in those sites because it's definitely needed. But yeah, I'm really grateful for how hard that the whole health team worked to break into those sites, specifically for the health sector.
Dumela, Philip. I hope you can hear me. Almost. It says connecting.
Yeah, we can wait a minute until he's connected and see if he can chime in or introduce himself.
Dumela, Philip. Can you hear me? That's okay. Maybe you can move on. Maybe he'll get connected.
Okay, fingers crossed. If you can hear us, welcome, Philip, and chime in anytime that you can. Okay, thank you, everyone. The next question I have for you is, what is one project that you worked on together that you think had the most sustainable impact on your community? Again, it could be a collaborative response or to each of you, the volunteer and the counterpart. So, and then if you didn't feel, on the other hand, if you felt that none of them were sustainable, like why and how do you think this could be improved? Like what was something you learned from it? So we can go with the established order.
Yeah, the one that always comes to mind for me is our care group model of education, where the volunteer will work with one counterpart in their site and work with an established or create a new group of women in the community. We call them leader mamas. And we give them basically a kind of informal talk on certain health topics, whether that's malaria symptom identification and treatment or the importance of nutrition during pregnancy, et cetera. And those 10 leader mamas will be in charge of 10 households each that they will go to where they live and give that same message out. And so in that way, we're promoting sustainability in education. We're providing this opportunity for these women to use their status in the community to improve the lives of their friends, their neighbors, their families, and really put the power in the hands of the community so that when the volunteer is gone, they can continue to use that knowledge that they picked up, use those experiences to continue the work in the community. And I was the first volunteer in my site, and I got to work with an already established women's group, and they were fantastic. There was a lot of scheduling difficulties given that we met every 2 weeks underneath a mango tree, and during the rainy season, if it starts to rain, you're not meeting that week. So I think it was a little difficult. The sustainability aspect of that group didn't work 100% in my community. That being said, I hope that a second volunteer can go to Khasame someday and continue the work I did. I don't know if Christian, you agree that the care group model is the more sustainable project, or if you had a different one.
Yes, I would definitely say so, but I can also mention the Amorevi Love and Life Peer Education project that every health volunteer is encouraged to implement. It's based off adolescent and youth, and I actually could meet with some of the past groups last week, and many of them are actually continuing to do sensitization, talk with other youth about sexual health, about malaria, about nutrition, and so on. Even though volunteers are not around, it was very good to see that they're actually continuing the work that they started with volunteers. And I'm pretty sure you had a peer education group as well, right? Yeah. So in addition to the care groups, I wanted to add that.
Thank you both so much. And I just want to jump in quick because it looks like we have Philip. So Philip, if you want to say hi and just introduce yourself, we'd love to meet you and welcome you into the conversation too. Fingers crossed. Okay. So it looks like maybe some technical difficulties. So we'll keep going. If he comes back on screen, maybe we can just pause and say hi quick.
Okay, I'll go for us. I believe that the project that was the most sustainable for us would, oh, Philip.
Dumela, Philip, can you hear us? Is your audio? Okay. I think he must still be having issues with audio. Sorry about that.
Keep going then. So ours is probably our main project, which was working with teachers and helping them with health education, specifically having them getting them more comfortable with student-centered interventions and some of the more difficult topics to talk about. And it was sustainable because I was able to be at a school and work with all of the health teachers and even have a workshop for health teachers within the region where we had handouts and all these different things so that they can have a template of where to go. And we got a lot of this help from Marisa, and she was the one that like guided us through the whole process to establish us, and she gave us a good foundation of what to build off of. Another one that I wanted to mention that wasn't quite sustainable that had the potential to be was a adolescent health clinic. After school once a week, I'd have students come over to the clinic and they could have a talk about anything they wanted with the nurses to learn more from a medical standpoint. And it was going very well. I had just established it in January 2020. And every week we had about 10, 15 students that would come, and it was expanding, hoping to get bigger and bigger. And then COVID happened and it got canceled. So it's not happening anymore, obviously, but it was on a good track up there. And so hopefully with the next cohort, they can get back on that and keep that going again.
Yes, I was just running my thing. I actually have a photograph of that activity. I think I have to save it and then send back. I'll do that. That was a really good program done by Connor and team. It was done by all of the volunteers in his region. And to this day, it's something that we look at as a best practice. And so it is something that we will be continuing and hope that the other volunteers replicate. Unfortunately, as you all are aware, COVID happened, everybody had to leave. And so we're yet to receive volunteers back, but as soon as we do, it is a program that we plan on piloting as a project for the volunteers. Let me go save that picture so I can put it in the chat.
Okay, and then for us, we had done a life skills grant. We were implementing that. That started January 2020, kind of the same deal as Connor, where we were working on it. It was going really well. It was looking really great, and then it got kind of put on hold or just ended because of COVID, getting it back. I think a lot of the work is still pretty sustainable because Philip is just the absolute best and like continues to do a lot of education and work with the students that he has. And even though we don't have the grant anymore, he still continues to do the work, and it's pretty amazing. So, and he sends me pictures all the time, and they're so cute. I don't, Philip, can you hear us yet? I don't think so.
Well, I'll just say we at least got to see Philip for a minute, and if you can stay on, Philip, and if you have the ability to say hi at any point, just jump in, cut us off, and then we can keep going.
So like I had mentioned previously, the health sector in Peru was shifting a framework in order to be more sustainable. And so in a previous framework, the health volunteers were responsible to train what we called promotores. So they were like community health workers from the community, and we were in charge of their training that they would then disperse to their communities. But obviously that's not super sustainable, because the second the volunteer leaves, who's training them? And so the new framework was a more training of the trainers. And so we were supposed to be training the individuals in the health posts or in the health centers on how to do the training for the healthcare workers. And so that was kind of what we were getting into. And at the beginning, it starts off as like, let's just train them together. And so you just kind of do a couple of weeks and months of just side-by-side training. And then at one point, the idea was that you kind of step back and kind of let them do their job and do what they're good at and what they're there for. And so yeah, I think that was probably, in terms of sustainability, that was one of the aspects of our new framework that was really great.
I just wanted to throw in that I put the picture in group, and I was cropped into the picture because I was not there the day that they did the group photo. So they saved a space for me, and then they cropped me in to the photo.
Oh, that's great. And I just glanced at it. I didn't even realize you were cropped in. I thought you were just there. So great photo skills to them. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing all of those wonderful projects. So I also want to know, what were some of your initial challenges? Because, one of the big things with Peace Corps, obviously, is cross-cultural collaboration. And that comes with challenges in the beginning, getting to know each other's culture and working together and figuring out how to work with each other's cultures and those kinds of things. So I'm wondering, what are some of your initial challenges in working together, and how did you overcome those challenges?
I think I'm lucky that Christian had such a long history with the Peace Corps before I got there. He's worked with so many volunteers that he's got a great understanding of what we need to really fulfill the goals when we get to country. And so I don't know that I have any challenges from working with him. Challenges working in country. He says that I had an advanced French, background when we were in PST. I didn't feel that at the time. The language was, the big struggle for me. But I made, I was given tons of help. Obviously, PST is a very intensive 3 months of language and technical and cultural training. And every, event that Christian was in charge of, it helped me be that much better of a volunteer. And then I think the other big challenge in working in, a culture that, Benin's culture is a little bit different than America's, especially in regards to time. It's a lot more flexible in Benin. So Peace Corps is very regimented, very structured, but as soon as you step out into your community, you have to be flexible. Folks might not show up on the exact time that you ask them to, and you just have to be flexible. And it really helped me to bring that back to the United States. I'm a lot more patient than I used to be, just because it makes a lot more sense to me now that you should be giving people a little bit more time and space to do the things that they need to do to get to where you want them to be. But I'm curious to hear Christian's insights on challenges working with me or with volunteers.
No, look, guys, no worry. It was not that challenging to work with you. But I may generalize a bit. As you said,
I usually have many volunteers to support. I think every year I had about like 30 volunteers to support, and the challenge related to that is that, you know, it is not automatic to, you know, respond to volunteers' requests. I know, you know, in American culture, when you guys ask something, you want to have it right now. And sometimes, you know, when volunteers will send you an email, but like you to respond as soon as possible, while, you know, you have other responsibilities, you have other maybe priorities, you have other emergencies that you need to answer to. So I would say that is the main challenge though. But also like language wise, hopefully, you know, I can talk with with volunteers, but when they are at site and when they have to, you know, work with their counterparts whose French is not that that good, volunteers, you know, they need to talk and understand the local language, and that is a very big challenge for them. Especially for community health volunteers, they work in rural settings, and in rural areas, most people, they speak local language, and if a volunteer wants to have an impact and actually have people change their behaviors with regard to the several health issues people face there, volunteers need to speak local language, or at least to have like the basis of those local languages. And I know having to learn French and local language, I understand that, you know, it's a very big challenge for volunteers. And I mean, it's an opportunity for me to say, hey, you guys, you rock. So yeah, those are the challenges that I felt like I should mention. Thank you.
For me, wasn't really many challenges working with Marisa. There's a couple cultural challenges in general that she helped us overcome. The time one was a big one. In Guyana, it's a lot more relaxed. They say just now for about anything from now till the end of the world. So just now does not mean just now. That was a big one they helped us learn. But the other one that I think is the most interesting challenge that she helped us overcome was the, since we were health educators, learning the slang for like sexual terms that the kids use. That was a fun class because we got to go all over these terms that Marisa felt uncomfortable saying at first. And we're like, Marisa, this is our job. This is what we're trying to do, trying to make people more comfortable saying this stuff. And so at the end of it, it was just a good lesson. But she was the one that like helped us get all over that stuff. And another challenge is that I didn't come in being a teacher, so she had to teach me how to teach as well. And that she was very helpful with that.
Yeah, I'm keeping in sync with Connor. Not many challenges with his group, I must say. They were well adjusted and they came with an open mind, blank slates. And so it was quite fun and enjoyable working with them. To the point that I'm still in contact with them all. We still have a WhatsApp group. I recently visited a few of them this past August and had a grand time. But generally, we don't always have a bunch as relaxed and open to learning as Connor's group. And so some of the same challenges that Christian spoke about, wanting things on their own and in their own time, I guess forgetting one of the main reasons why they joined Peace Corps, you know, like to learn about others and for others to learn about them. I think a lot of people are not ready to let go of their culture and learn other cultures. And so it becomes very difficult in as much as opposed we try to say, you know, certain things will not be accessible, like regular internet and so on. And then people come and they complain about not having internet and complain about mosquitoes and complain about not having access to waffles and all of the other things, even though in that lovely package that we sent, it says says all of those things. But what I have come to understand after my recent trip visiting the volunteers is that as posts, we take away a lot of your independence. You come as adults. When I went there, everybody was driving, they're living on their own and so on. But when you come to country, you cannot drive. Peace Corps tells you a lot of what has to be done and so on. And I know a lot of it is for security reasons, but the trip opened my eyes to looking at a few different ways of enforcing or doing some of the things that we do as a post. Because it can never be an immediate reaction for someone to move away from being very independent to having a host family tell you that you got to come home by 6, or somebody cooking all of your meals and so on. So it's something as a post we've already started having a conversation about since we have all of this downtime. So those are some of the things that we're looking to tweak and fine tune, not to do away with because some are still very necessary, but to tweak a few of those that can be tweaked so that the experience can be more of what it should be and less of the complaints and wanting to go home, I guess, and so on.
Yeah, I kind of have this had a similar experience with Connor and how he worked with his counterpart. Just like struggling with language a bit was my main challenge. It's really difficult to teach like HIV in a community where HIV is extremely stigmatized. So learning the like correct language and how to teach it age appropriate, and Philip was invaluable to that entire process. And his answer, his biggest challenge, he mentioned COVID-19. He lost his volunteers, he lost his grant, and he had to keep, he was so resilient and, kept doing the work without all of that help. So, and he kept teaching those students, but I'm sure it was pretty challenging for him. I don't know where he went, but hopefully he comes back on eventually. I'm just glad you guys got to see his face. So.
So for me, mine's a little different. So I'm glad that, we have a diverse group of people here. Obviously I served in Peru, and I'm a native Spanish speaker. So language was not an issue for me. I'm fortunate in that way. And I was intentional about that. I wanted to go to a country that I spoke the language. And so that worked out great. So, no language barrier. There's deeper barriers that, once you get the language, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have barriers. And so, and they were cultural, which was really interesting for me. And so in my case, it was that my site was, so there's like provinces, obviously, and within the provinces, there's districts, and my site was a district capital. And so it was a, probably roughly 2,000-ish a population, but it's still small, very rural, but big enough that there's drama and there's gossiping and there's people who don't like the mayor, people who don't like the school principal, people that don't like the director of the health post. And when you're really tapped in the language, you hear all of that and you understand all of that. And it just so happened to be that my host family was, and this is actually how they found my host family, but the whole health post ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner at my host family's house. That was kind of like how my host mom made her money, and selling meals. And so, on my first week in my site, I realized that everyone would come to my host family's house and I would hear them talking negatively about people that I would be working in the community. And it was, I felt very I have to be very careful of what I say, who I say it to. I can't ever be a part of the gossip. I can't ever contribute. Even if I actually don't like the person, I can't ever contribute to it because it'll spread like wildfire. And that's a very small town thing. And so that was probably one of the biggest challenges I had. You you grasp the concept pretty quickly, but it came up time and time again. And there were challenges definitely with individual, and it was always like important people. It was always the mayor, the health director, or the school principal, which were all my three main counterparts. And they were all very contentious individuals. Like there were massive groups of people who loved them and massive groups of people who didn't like them. And I kind of had to be neutral as much as I could possibly be. So that was one of my cultural challenges.
Thank you everyone for sharing. That was really interesting to hear everyone's perspectives, very diverse perspectives on like what cultural challenges you had and how you overcame them. So I would also love to know, what did you love about working with each other?
I think I touched on this briefly, but just the pure support that I got from Christian and the rest of the Peace Corps staff was just from day one. They had history working with volunteers. They knew what it was we needed to motivate us, to make us feel like we had a support group, we had a support system in, among the Peace Corps staff. And honestly, that support, that unbridled acceptance was spread. I got that from almost all of the Beninese people that I met. My community was, instantly took me in. They were instantly, happy to have me and happy to teach me all of the things I needed to learn to, thrive in the community. My host family took me in, and, I know each country does it a little bit differently, but in Benin, you have your 3 months of pre-service training, and right smack dab in the middle, you have a 2-week site visit where you stay with the host family. But then after PST is done, you get your own house or your own apartment in a larger building. And some people don't get along with their host families that keep them for that 2-week site visit. I absolutely loved my family. And, my host papa had tons of children that would come in and were so happy to teach me Aja, to learn English from me, to exchange French. It was immediate welcoming, and it lasted for the whole 2 years that I was there. So that's kind of what I loved about Benin.
Yeah, I guess what I can mention about that, and I mean, just in general, volunteers' capacity of integration, it is just, it is just amazing. Knowing that they come from somewhere where they had almost everything and being able to work in a very small village without electricity, without running water, in very small rooms and so on, sharing the room with every kind of, ants or other insects. That is really amazing. Myself, there are things, there are conditions that I can't live in today, but volunteers, they actually do it. And that's something that always, it always amazed me. And specifically talking about Lucas, I remember that he had a problem with his latrine and he was without latrine for, many weeks, and he didn't even report it to me. And I was like, how can you live without a latrine? And he was like, that's not a problem. And I was really surprised. I mean, that's just a way to say how resilient he is, and how how much open, and he kind of accepted the situation. He kind of accepted to face that challenge without having to receive an exterior help. And I'm pretty sure that problem was not fixed since he left the country. Was that fixed anytime?
No, I feel like it needs a little more detail. There was a particularly strong rainstorm, and it, softened the ground around the latrine to the point where the structure sunk a couple of inches into the ground. So the doors wouldn't open anymore because they would just hit ground. So they just took off all the doors. And I didn't want to use them when they had sunk into the ground because I was afraid of falling in, but I was lucky that I was across the street from the health center and they let me use their latrine. So I was established, like everything was fine. Didn't need to get moved or anything, but it was definitely an interesting experience.
Yeah, well, that's not easy at all, I can imagine. So I definitely loved, the way you accept the situation and the way you kind of found a coping mechanism. Yeah.
So what I loved about working with Marisa is that it was always fun and interesting. Like every training session was a good time. We all enjoyed it. She made the PST that was long and supposed to be brutal a fun time, and I always looked forward to coming in and learning whatever we're learning about today. And even if we were struggling with a bit, Marisa would know how to make it light, and it was just always fun when we worked with Marisa. It was never a boring time.
That's exactly what I liked about working with them, and they enabled me to be myself. Um, so I was free to say what I wanted, and they were free to say what they wanted to. So we did keep it very professional. We knew when and where to do what, but having a very open relationship made it easier to work with them because they were not afraid to say when they had issues or challenges. And again, that is a best practice that we have moved on with as a health group. um Getting to know, I think what helped us was getting to know them individually. Their likes, their dislikes, because you do have a call with them and you learn um the basics, but really getting to know them um helped us to work with them, and not only work but helped us to place them as well. So I think that enabled us to have a very good working relationship with that group, and it's something that we truly hope continues because it made life so much easier. At points you had to check and make sure they were alive, how you didn't used to get any calls, complaints, or anything. So you're like, sure, everything all right, y'all still in region 2, and so on. So it made it so easy to work with them by just having like an adult relationship. So you didn't look at them as, oh, volunteers. So this is Connor and he's here doing XYZ. So we related as adults, and it made life so much easier. It looks like Philip can talk. I see his thing is stabilized.
Dumela, Philip, can you hear me?
Yes,
Dumela,
yes, I can hear you.
Good, good. What I loved working about with Philip was yes.
Yes, I wanted like to say hello.
It's pretty hard to, yes, Philip. He calls me Mother Tati.
Like what is like give me problem, so like
Okay.
give me like yes, you can greet everyone for me.
I wonder, if you can hear us, we can't hear you very well, but we can see your camera, so you could maybe show us where you are.
Oh, he's so cute. Yay. 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 I love working with Philip. He is one of just the most wonderful people. He has so much energy and passion, and working on our grant together, sometimes it was like, wow, like I don't know if we're going to be able to do all this work, if it will even work, will it even help the community? And he always was just like, yes, like everything is going to work out, everything's going to be great. And he just cares so much, more than anyone that I've ever met. And yeah, he's amazing. I loved working with him. And I'm sorry that we can't hear you that great, Philip, but yeah.
Can I type like a message? I can use the message like type something.
That would work.
So for me, I think what did I love the most about working with Miriam, and just in general, I think with Miriam, I kind of mentioned this already before, but she always had a very good intuition about where we would be best placed at, what kind of stuff we would be really good at. She was very observant and quickly picked up on our strengths and gave us many opportunities to utilize our strengths. And so I think just in general, Miriam was just a very good leader, and I deeply respect her. She's no longer with Peace Corps, but I wish her the best in anything she does, and I'm sure she's gonna do great. She even one time sent me a job opening here in Florida from via LinkedIn. She's like, look at this, you would be great at this. And I was like, thank you, Miriam. Thank you for looking out for me. But yeah, she was wonderful. And in general, my whole like Peace Corps experience, I think building relationships, not just with my host family, which was a huge part of my experience. And I loved them very much, but also because of the nature of, I kind of mentioned this already, but the nature of my host family and how a lot of people that worked in the community ate at my house, I ended up getting really close with a lot of people who worked in the community, even if they weren't part of my host family. And those are some of the best relationships I have, actually. And kind of like we spent all the holidays together, and my site was just a kind of place where like people didn't really live, the workers didn't live there. They traveled from outside and like would work in the town. And they would stay for like extended periods of time and then would go home for a little bit and then come back. And so a lot of us kind of felt like we were all far from home, which was an interesting experience. It was like a very chosen family type of situation. And I have very good relationships with a lot of those people that I met at my site.
Thank you everyone for sharing, and I'm so glad that we can see you and we could kind of hear you, Philip. Thanks for joining us, and if you want to keep trying to answer, hopefully we'll get a chance to actually hear you. That'd be great. That's great. Thank you all for sharing about what you love about working with each other. And then another question is something that you learned from each other. So something you learned from your volunteer or volunteers, or something you learned from your counterpart while working with each other. Maybe just one thing, the most memorable thing that you learned.
Given it that Christian's whole job was to teach me things, it's hard to pick one. I learned so much in those first 3 months of PST and throughout my service. But like maybe one thing that I picked up that maybe he didn't intentionally teach me, he's just, Christian, you have a very, very contagious laugh and you bring a lot of joy to the room when you're around. And I took that and it helped a lot in the toughness of PST. And just whenever we did get the chance to chat, it just brightened my spirits. And so, you know, apart from the learning of the French, learning the Agile, learning the technical skills it took to come in and work on rural community health, just the importance of having a positive attitude at, you know, any time that you can muster that energy, it's makes all the difference in the world when you're interacting with other people.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I would just repeat myself. What I really learned from Lucas was, you know, actually his resilience. I think not every volunteer will be that resilient, especially for a volunteer who was the first at his site, and you know, having to build new relationships, having to face the challenge that I just mentioned. You know, most volunteers will be like, you know, I need to get out of that side and go to capital city while the situation is being handled. But he just accepted that situation and just continued his service. So yes, I think the resiliency is what I definitely learned from him.
For me, one thing I learned from Marisa was how to teach, how to educate not just kids, but also other teachers in the same profession. And she was very helpful with learning the methods and things and the proper procedures for all of that. And like also Lucas said, Marisa was very positive all the time, and that was always helpful, especially when struggling with learning to teach.
For me, what I learned from Connor and the wider team is that opportunities are abound. I think before working with Peace Corps, I was never I never knew of all of the opportunities that existed out in the world. So I would have learned a lot from him and his counterpart and his volunteer group about things that you can study, things that you can do. Because at one point they were all planning for what they were going to do when their time was up, and where they were going to apply and where they're going to look for X and Y and Z. And I'm like, And so I started looking at those things as well. And since them being here and leaving, I would have embarked on some more studies. I think they were here when I started the University of the West Indies, and I did my diploma in health and family life education. And so from them, I learned that not that it's never too late to study, but there are things that are available to you that you're interested in. And before then, and working with Peace Corps, I never knew that. So that's one thing I learned from them, and it's something that has helped me greatly in my professional life.
Yeah, I also just learned so much from Philip. That was kind of like, again, his job, just to teach me everything about the community that I was in. But I think most important, he just taught me to just be like optimistic, even in like the worst case scenario. It's probably my favorite thing that I learned from him. Philip, are you able to say anything? I don't think so. What he had sent to me was that he learned how to implement life skills, patience, and counseling during working with children, while working with children. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I think one of the things that I really learned from Miriam was like how to work with others, in the sense that because we were building a new framework, she would often have to like leave PST to have meetings with the Ministry of Health. And anytime someone from outside of Peace Corps came and spoke with us, they always spoke very, very highly of her. And you could tell that like her caliber of communicating and just like how well she knew what we were doing and how passionate she was about it really showed to others. And so that convinced people to invest in what we were doing as well, because she demonstrated that same investment. And so, yeah, I think it was just like great lessons in leadership and how to present and pitch something that you really care about to other people. So yeah, I think that those are some good lessons from Miriam.
Awesome. Thank you. And then this is my final question for you all today. And then we can open it to questions that you have for each other, or if anyone in the audience has questions. But my final question is, how has your experience of Peace Corps through forging these partnerships affected your lives and careers and goals? Can focus on just one of those things, but that's the final question.
Well, for me, going into Peace Corps, I was I got my undergraduate degree in neuroscience. My plan was I took the MCAT before I went to Benin, and my plan was to be a doctor at some point. Pediatrics was, felt like my calling. I really love kids. And I worked with kids my whole time in Benin. As rural community health volunteers, we're not giving vaccines. We're not doing the job of a doctor. We are teaching, and we are trying to provide the community with the skills and the resources to best help themselves to kind of prevent those illnesses from happening in the first place. And that showed me the importance of public health, making sure that the environment is suitable for children to grow in the optimal way, prevent illness, because it's great to have doctors around and medications to treat the illnesses when they happen, but you can save people time, money, effort, a whole bunch of problems if you can prevent those illnesses from happening in the first place. And so that kind of changed my mind. And instead of applying to medical schools after Peace Corps, I applied to graduate schools to study public health. I'm now in my second year of my MPH program at USF. I am specializing in maternal and child health, and I'm starting to work with an organization that focuses on improving fatherhood engagement with the families, improving family environments, improving parenting to ensure the best outcomes for children. And so Peace Corps, switched my career path, not entirely, it's still focused on health, but pretty substantially. And then personally, just made me a more patient person. It made me giving people the benefit of the doubt, remembering that everybody else is going through something as well. So if you have a bad interaction with, a taxi motorcycle driver in Benin, can't really, I don't want to use that against them. I don't want to hold a personal grudge against them because maybe they're just having a bad day too. Those are my learned experiences.
Okay, I think for me, working with Peace Corps in the health area, I kind of have the feeling that I'm really contributing to something big. When you read volunteer stories through what we call the VRF, I'm very sure everyone knows about it here, right? Yes, so reading volunteer stories, reading the success stories, and seeing some impacts that they're having, it really makes me proud somehow, because you see them, as fresh new volunteers, like kids. You guys are not kids, but like kids, and guiding them through the service, guiding them through challenges, through training and so on, and seeing that, they get to accomplish, even if it's, something very small. Seeing that makes me feel like, yes, the volunteers did it, but behind that, I also did something, and I'm contributing to something good, to something nice, something helpful to other people. So that is, I've always has that feeling, that pride, but also working with American in general and seeing how volunteers can actually adapt and be happy where they are, living their families, their friends, their beloved one, far in America, and coming in Africa, and serving here, and actually being able to reach some goals that they have. Makes me feel like, I can do anything I want, provided that I have that will, provided that I organize myself in order to reach that goal. And personally, that is something that I've learned for my person, but also for my career in general. Yeah.
For me, it was actually very similar to Lucas. I was planning on going to medical school after Peace Corps as well. I know I wanted to work internationally, but I wasn't sure if medical school was the exact path. And working in Peace Corps helped me to see the preventative side, like he was talking. So now I'm getting my master's in public health in epidemiology and global health. And working with Marisa showed me that it's not only possible, it's actually very easy, and as long as both people are open to work with people from different countries and internationally. So with the work I want to do overseas throughout my career, Marisa really helped me figure out that that's the possibility and where I want to go. And I believe she has had to leave. She might still be on, but I don't think she can speak. She had a meeting.
Okay, then I will go next. Peace Corps definitely, just like the other volunteers said, has just changed every aspect of my life. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that I liked health education. That's what I was doing before I left for the Peace Corps. And a lot of the volunteers started talking about, going to grad school, getting their masters. And I was like, that was never anything that crossed my mind. So I started looking into it and was like, okay, cool. So I'm here where I am now because of Peace Corps. And I don't know if Philip can talk, but he did send me his answer. Yeah, we can, still can't really hear you, Philip, but they, he said, the partnership affected my life by giving me opportunity to develop, have good communication with learners, and open my mind for information in terms of technology and for future developing of our community. Lastly, Peace Corps has developed Ratanong Drop-In Center, which was the organization that we worked at together with resources like the garden that they built, and we thank Peace Corps a lot for it, is what he said.
And for me, again, similar to everyone else, I was pretty confident in my decision to go to the Peace Corps, and I pretty much knew that I wanted to go into global health. This was kind of my first like testing of the waters in an official capacity. And so I think what it did was just confirm everything for me. It confirmed that it was something I was really passionate about. It confirmed that it was something I was capable of doing. And now I had like lived experiences that currently in my master's program of public health, I'm able to apply so many of those experiences time and time again, especially because my concentration is in global health practice. And so especially at the very beginning, we always talk about the regular needs of public health, and then you put this like extra layer of culture over it. And that's pretty much what we did in the Peace Corps. And so it's been really helpful and has given me a lot of like, it just gave me so many valuable lessons on how to do public health work in a specific cultural setting. And I think if anything, like that kind of mentality isn't just useful internationally, but it's also useful domestically, just because a lot of the most marginalized communities here in the United States, the reason why they're marginalized is because their culture isn't taken account of. And so if we approached it the way we approach like international communities, we could potentially do a lot of good work even here domestically. And so yeah, overall, Peace Corps was just a really valuable learning experience, and I'll take those lessons with me like throughout the rest of my career for sure.
Thank you all so very much for this conversation. I'm not sure if Christian and Marisa both had to hop off. If you can hop on at least and say goodbye, or if anyone has any final questions for the panel, or if you have questions for each other.
If I may, I'm sorry to interject. If it's okay, I'd like to take a group picture with everyone. So if you're able to have your cameras on, I will take a screenshot so that way we can have record of this. All right. On the count of 3, 1, 2, oh, wait for Lord. Right. 1, 2, 3. All right, perfect.
Great. Thank you, Jesse.
Absolutely.
Does anyone have any final questions for each other, or anyone from the audience if you have questions to pose? Open that up quick. Okay. Then I guess we'll just say thank you. Thank you so much, Philip, for joining. I'm glad we could see you and that we could hear from Aaron a little bit about your responses and see in the chat. And thank you, Christian and Marisa, for joining so much. And then obviously all of our Coverdell Fellows. It really is a great conversation, and I'll be sure to share this recording with you. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Au revoir,
Bye.
Christian.
Bye, thank you.